welcome back to more fun with the Finicky Finches. So today we are all piano players and we want to be the best piano player in the world. But sometimes we can experience fatigue when we're playing, and we just need to get to the bottom of this and really break down why we're experiencing fatigue. In order to do that, we first need to analyze and break down the movements and motions that occur when we play the piano. And that's what I'm going to do first. So, when we're playing piano, we have many motions and movements that occur in our elbows and our hands and our fingers. So, in order to break down, we're going to look at the different movements that can occur at these joints. When you're playing piano, you typically are going to be in this position, in a pronated position. But when I refer to these movements, we refer to them when we see the body in anatomical position, which is palms facing up. But since we're playing the piano, we can't play with our palms facing up. We have to play with our palms facing down in a pronated position. Otherwise, this would look stupid playing the piano because we can't extend and curl our fingers that way. That would just purely look stupid. So we're not going to look stupid, and we're going to pronate our hands. So first, a movement that really occurs is just your wrist being in this flexed position, a constant flexed position, because that's how you're going to be able to play the piano. And then your fingers are also going to be in this flexed position to really hit those key notes and different chords. When you're hitting chords that are going to be spread out, you're going to abduct your fingers, so spread them out as if they're being taken away from each other. And then if you're playing notes that are closer to each other, you're going to adduct, adduct, and then bring them back together as if you're adding everything back together. So that's when you're playing just different keys that are farther apart from each other or closer to each other. And then if you're moving to a different part of the piano, different notes, you're gonna move that wrist and also just move the arm, but we're focusing really at the wrist and finger movements. And so sometimes you're going to do this abduction and adduction of the wrist. So when we think of abduction and adduction, like I said, abduction is taking something away and adduction is pulling it back together. When we think of these movements, we're going to be thinking in our mind of anatomical positions. Anatomical position, palms face up, and so abduction or radial deviation is where your thumb it's on the thumb side, it's moving, so bringing it kind of closer to trying to get it to the forearm. And then adduction is on the pinky side. So with that, you're really moving the wrist and trying to hit all those chords and different keys. And then, like I said, finger flexion and then finger extension too, to get all those notes and really hit those key notes and really be the best piano player ever. So just a review of what we were going through the motions. Wrist flexion and extension too, just to get all those notes, finger flexion and extension, and then wrist abduction, so thumb side, and then adduction, pinky side, or radial deviation and ulnar deviation. And yeah, basically those are all the key movements that occur in the wrist and the fingers that are key and important to playing the piano and being the best piano player ever. So next we will go over the different muscles that are involved with those types of movements and actions.
Hi, and now we're going to talk about the muscles in the hand and the wrist that are used to play piano. So first we're going to talk about abduction and adduction of the fingers and the wrist. To abduct the fingers like this, we're going to use the dorsal interossi. To adduct the fingers like this, we're going to use the palmar interossi. And then for abduction of the wrist, we're going to use the flexor carpi radialis, the extensor carpi radialis longus, extensor carpialis radialis long or brevis, abductor pollicis longus, extensor pollicis longus, extensor pollicis brevis. And then for adduction of the wrist, we're going to do the flexor carpi ulnaris, the extensor carpi ulnaris, and that's it. So abduction of the wrist is going to be like that, adduction of the wrist is going to be like that inward. Now we're going to talk about flexion of the fingers, which looks like this. And that is going to use the flexor digitorum superficialis and the flexor digitorum and flexor digitorum pollicis longus, which focuses on the thumb. And now we're going to do extension of the fingers, which looks like that. Those muscles include extensor digitorum, extensor index, extensor digiti minimi, extensor pollicis longus, extensor pollicis brevis. And now for extension of the finger, or for flexion of the wrist, like that, we're gonna have the muscles involved to be flexor carpi radialis, the flexor carpi ulnaris, the palmaris longus, the flexor digitorum superficialis, the flexor digitorum profundus, and the flexor pollicis longus. So those are going to be generally on the anterior side of the arm. And for the extensor muscles, to extend the wrist, we are going to be using the extensor carpi radialis longus, the extensor carpi radialis brevis, the extensor carpi ulnaris, the extensor digitorum, the extensor index, extensor digiti minimi, extensor pollicis longus, and the extensor pollicis brevis. And then that's about it. So the name usually will help you understand what each muscle is doing and where it is located and what it's acting on. And I hope that helps.
Hey guys, so today we're going to be going over how to do some warm-up stretches that are active for people that play the piano. It's really important when we're doing warm-ups before that we do active warm-ups. We want to really be warming up those muscles actively versus a passive stretch. So there's a couple different things we can do since we're engaging a lot of muscles in our fingers and wrists. Some of the things that I like to do that's also involved in a lot of other activities besides piano playing would be this little guy. It's called a finger roller. You're gonna see here. Yeah, cool. So this little guy, it's really great because they're pretty tight. It's got a bunch of different grooves and tightness constrictions around the ring. What I like to do for these is you can actually individually roll these up and down nice and slow over each digit. This is a nice way to actively engage all of our muscles that are going to be on the anterior, posterior, and both lateral sides of all of our fingers. So this is really great because you're getting all aspects at one time. Really nice just to do this a couple minutes before you start playing the piano. Another one I have here, it's super easy to make if you don't have one. It's kind of like a little makeshift resistance band. So what I took here is I did 5 rubber bands, attached them to a nice little carabiner here. And then what you do is, these are going to be for extension resistance. So you're just going to put each digit inside of, sorry, let me see the best way I can do this. Each finger inside each of the rubber bands. And it's attached to your carabiner so you can kind of pull down on them. And you can also isolate each finger individually. So we have this right here. This is great because as opposed to putting your hand over an entire rubber band, you can really isolate each digit. So with these, it's going to really engage our extensors on the back of our hand, since we're doing a lot of different ranges of motion when we're playing the piano. So you see here, super easy to do. You can also do one finger at a time if you just want to isolate certain ones. And then another one too is if you also want to do the entire hand, you can do a different resistance. It's just putting it over each one like that, okay? So really great to do an active warm-up before and then a passive warm-up afterwards. Thank you.
So I'm going to be going over 5 stretches for the phalanges and the wrist. The first is a thumb stretch, so pushing your thumb into full extension and then pushing with the other hand into more extension. Doing that for both hands. Second one is tissue massage. And you just want to massage the muscles in between the thumb and the index finger. And then 15 seconds on both hands for that one too. The third one is a hand squeeze. So you put your hand and the fingers into full extension on all of them, and then slowly squeeze that into a fist. And then do that 5 times for both hands. The fourth is a wrist stretch. So put your fingers into a fist and fully flex the wrist as far as you can, and this will flex and stretch all of the extenders on your forearm. And do this on both hands for 15 seconds each. And the last one is a forearm stretch and massage. So put your wrist into full extension, like so. 15 seconds on both arms for that. And then also massaging all the flexors on both arms.
Hello and welcome back. Today we're going to focus on some forearm muscles, those hard to exercise and stretch muscles that sometimes get neglected. Liv here is also a pianist, and she also feels some tightness in these forearm muscles that need to be worked out and strengthened. So Liv, let's go ahead and we're first going to put your forearm down. Are you right-handed or left-handed? Okay, I guess she is right-handed. Liv, I want you to go ahead and grasp this. Without moving your elbow, I want you to slowly contract and flex those wrist muscles. If you can see here, right over here, you can see her palmaris longus really contracting in order to help, flex that wrist. Liv is also extending her wrist down, which she is using some of the extensor digitorum muscles and other muscles on the forearm, the underneath side of her arm. Thank you, Liv, for being such a great model. Another great exercise for strengthening some of these forearm muscles that are, again, somewhat hard to reach would be this following. Ready, Miss Liv? My beautiful model. Man, you are the Vanna White of exercising. We're gonna go ahead and you're gonna hold this right here. She's gonna go ahead and she is gonna supinate her arm this way and then pronate all the way back up to neutral position. This is working some of these extensor muscles and flexor muscles, but primarily some of the pronator and supinator muscles in her arm, such as pronator teres and the supinator muscle. Thank you, Miss Liv, for showing and being such a great model.